Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into something called Mimamsa. It's this ancient toolkit designed to solve a really fascinating problem. How do you find perfect truth in texts that, well, seem to be flawed?
So let's just start with a puzzle. What if the most sacred texts, in this case the Vedas, which ancient thinkers believed were infallible, what if they had apparent errors in them? I mean, what do you do when your ultimate source of truth seems to get things wrong?
And the thinkers who studied these texts, they didn't just sweep this stuff under the rug. Nope. They actually categorized these issues into three main types of flaws, which they called doshas. First, you've got untruth, which is when a text promises something like, say, if you do this ritual, it'll rain, but then it doesn't. Then there's self-contradiction, where one part tells you to do something after sunrise, and another part says do it before. And finally, you have repetition, where the text just seems to say the same thing over and over for no obvious reason.
Now you gotta understand, this wasn't just some minor academic problem. This was a huge deal. If your foundational texts have falsehoods, contradictions, and just pointless repetition, how can you possibly claim they're authoritative? It was a serious challenge that demanded a really serious answer.
So what was the answer? Well, it wasn't to just throw the texts out or pretend the problems didn't exist. Instead, they developed a rigorous, totally logical science for understanding them correctly. And that science is called Mimamsa.
And the name itself, it tells you everything you need to know. Mimamsa basically means a detailed and logical inquiry. So right off the bat, we know this isn't about blind faith. It's a system built on pure reason, sharp analysis, and the actual art of interpretation.
Its whole reason for being is to be a reliable toolkit. It's designed to take passages that seem confusing or contradictory or just plain flawed on the surface, and through a really methodical process, reveal their true, consistent, and intended meaning.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. How did they actually do it? Mimamsa isn't just a bunch of loose ideas. It uses this brilliant six-step analytical framework called the Adhikarana to dissect any tricky passage. Think of this like a formal debate or a legal argument, all laid out step by step. It starts with Vishaya. That's where you just state the subject, the exact line you're looking at. Then comes Samshaya, where you pinpoint the specific doubt or problem. Next up is the Purva Paksha. This is where you lay out the opponent's view, the most obvious or common interpretation. After that, you present the Siddhanta, which is your final, correct conclusion. But you're not done. Then you have to challenge your own conclusion with an akshepa, an objection, just to stress test it. And finally, you offer the samadhana, the resolution that deals with the objection and really locks in your interpretation. It's an incredibly thorough process. Now, theory is one thing, but this whole framework just comes to life with an example. So let's put it into action with the famous case of the Kapinjala birds.
So here's our subject, a Vedic instruction that says to sacrifice Kapinjala birds. Simple enough, right? Well, the doubt comes from the grammar. The word used for birds is plural, but in classical Sanskrit, plural isn't just two or more. It specifically means three or more. So how many birds are we talking about exactly?
All right, so the opponent's view, the Purva Paksha, argues that since no specific number is given, any quantity from 3 upwards is fine. 4, 5, 100, it's all good. But the final conclusion, the Siddhanta, is incredibly precise. Exactly 3 birds, no more, no less. So why?
The reasoning here is absolutely brilliant. The interpreter has to balance 2 principles. On one hand, you have to follow the specific instruction, which says use a plural number of birds. But on the other hand, you have to follow a broader principle of causing the minimum amount of harm necessary. So what's the smallest possible number that still counts as plural in Sanskrit? 3. And that's the answer. It perfectly satisfies the grammar while also satisfying the principle of minimal harm.
Okay, so now that we've seen this tool up close, let's zoom out. Because this powerful system doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It's actually a key piece in a much larger intellectual puzzle. So let's see exactly where it fits.
So the Vedas are broadly split into 2 main sections. The first part, the Purva Kanda, is all about rituals aimed at achieving worldly goals like prosperity or getting into heaven. The school that interprets this part is Purva Mimamsa. That's the system we've been talking about. Then there's the second part, the Uttara-kanda, which is all about ultimate knowledge aimed at spiritual liberation, and that's interpreted by a different, though related school called Vedanta. And this is what's just amazing. Mimamsa is not some ancient curiosity. Its principles of rigorous, rule-based interpretation are incredibly relevant today. I mean, think about it.
Lawyers interpreting a statute, judges trying to figure out the original intent of a law, or even a computer scientist designing a programming language that has to parse commands without any ambiguity, they're all doing a modern form of mimamsa.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Here's this highly structured, logical system for resolving ambiguity and finding clarity, and it's been around for thousands of years. What other powerful intellectual tools just like it might be waiting there in ancient wisdom, ready for us to rediscover and apply to the really complex problems we face today?